Hi, my name is Rachel Langston, and for the final project, I will be focusing on feminism in television. Specifically, I want to focus on the traditional role that women were expected to have through the view of two characters in two different Hulu TV shows. The first character is Serena Joy in A Handmaid's Tale, and the second is Phyllis Schlafly, who actually is a historical figure in the United States, specifically in the second wave of feminism, but she also is a character in Mrs. America, a recent Hulu original series which is based on true events. To give you some background, The Handmaid's Tale is a story of life in the dystopian future. The country of Gilead, which was based on the premise of Christian religion and becoming one with the state, overthrew the United States government and took over. The world at the time was faced with a terrible reality that babies were extremely hard to produce. The birth rate plummeted over the entire world, and Gilead's goal was to produce children and raise them in families. However, the state of Gilead treated its women like property in order to produce children. On the other hand, Mrs. America is loosely based on true events that happened in the United States in the 1970s. There was a progressive movement from women around the country to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, giving women equal rights as men. But the movement was faced with backlash from Phyllis Schlafly and her organizations. Now, let's get into the comparison of Phyllis Schlafly and Serena Joy. So let's start with how these women are similar. The main point that they both agree on is that women should be in traditional roles. They should be submissive, they should be at home, and they should have children and take care of those children. Those are two major arguments that are paralleled between the two shows. What's interesting, however, is the hypocrisy that lies in both of the shows within both of their arguments, but we'll get into that later. They both also wrote books to further their arguments. For example, Serena Joy wrote a book called A Woman's Place, and she would tour around the United States lobbying for women to stay at home and to not be working and to try to have kids. And she was met with a lot of pushback from citizens in the United States. In fact, at one point, she was even shot for her arguments. Phyllis, on the other hand, wrote a book about Republican leaders, and it was actually seen more as a conspiracy theory, and it had nothing to do with feminism. In fact, Phyllis had nothing to do with feminism until she saw that no one was opposing the Equal Rights Amendment. And when she saw that no one was opposing, she saw an opportunity to get in good graces with the President of the United States and future presidents of the United States to hopefully become a cabinet member on their cabinet. All of this to say that both of these women were very articulate and outspoken, and they knew how to rally a crowd around them. For example, Serena Joy had access to a Bible and read from it in front of her husband and other commanders of Gilead. Both of these things, owning a book and reading, were against the law for women to do. However, she rallied a group of women together to confront their husbands in the commander positions and say, "We would like rights."
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
We would like to help make laws within Gilead, and we would like to have a voice. However, she was met with punishment, and in Gilead they would take their punishment from the Old Testament, very serious and very brutal punishment. So she had to cut off a finger for having a book and reading it out loud. On the other hand, Phyllis Schlafly was a master networker. She was able to grow her Stop ERA movement from just a few people in her town to a nationwide movement. She gathered 40,000 women together through newsletters and through rallies in order to support the Stop ERA movement. Notably, a large portion of those women were from the LDS Church. What I find interesting is both of these women defied their most fundamental belief in their argument, that women should be submissive and stay at home. Phyllis Schlafly, for example, worked long hours. She was lobbying, she was writing Congress, she was constantly in Washington, D.C. to stop the ERA movement. She was out of the home, she was away from her husband, and all of those things she was preaching that women should do. Women should be at home. They shouldn't have to work if they don't want to. And she was called out for her hypocrisy several times, but she never wavered in the workload that she took on or her beliefs. And she never accepted that there was any hypocrisy in what she was doing.
They truly believe that men and women are the same. It's not enough for them to have the right to work.
We want equal pay for equal work.
Now you tell me that's liberation? What that isn't liberation. Liberation's in the home.
You are not really a housewife. You are a full-time lobbyist.
I have let you run around this country with your cause.
I have raised 6 of your children. Can't keep me from going.
Why would God put this fire in me if he didn't want me to act on it?
Serena Joy, on the other hand, she was instrumental in the founding of Gilead. In fact, it was her ideas that her husband took, which became the foundation of the country that was established. She, for the most part, was very submissive because she thought what was happening was in the name of God. God wanted men to rule the household. God wanted men to tell women what to do. However, Serena found a lot of liberation through the oppression of other women, through the handmaids in the stories. There were times, however, where you could see Serena's character almost want to defy the oppression that was put on her by reading or by teaching or by even leaving the country, but her desire for children overcame those desires for having a voice.
I gave up everything for you. And for the cause.
Serena, you built this whole world just so that you could have someone. But it didn't work.
And I only ever wanted one thing in return. I wanted a baby.
You're small. You're cruel. And you're empty. You will always be empty.
In the end, neither of these women got what they ultimately desired. Serena Joy bent the rules several times in order to have a child, and it was because of those times that she bent the rules that the child was taken away from her. So she ultimately will not be a mom, which is her whole goal. Phyllis Schlafly saw a moment of victory because the Equal Rights Amendment was never passed in the United States. Some states ratified it, however, the country as a whole did not. She gave Reagan access to her mailing list of 40,000 women, which was instrumental in his presidency election. However, she was not appointed a cabinet seat in his cabinet because people wanted someone who was a little more progressive in the equal rights movement. So her ultimate goal of getting a cabinet seat for the president fell short as well. In conclusion, it seems that both of these TV shows have a similar narrative, that when we fight for the traditional women's roles and we oppose the progression of what it means to be a woman, it not only hinders women personally from progressing, but it hinders the nation as a whole. Thank you so much.